Morejohn, and I am from Oakland, California. Although I grew up in Oakland, Oregon, which is a town of about 800 people in Southern Oregon. So I have this kind of asymmetry of two different places. I'm kind of a country mouse more. So I guess first slide. So these are my drawings, very different than Ro, who goes super fast. I kind of go a bit slower, more detailed work. This drawing is titled Blue Strawberry. And a lot of my work is looking at patterns in nature, and especially, patterns in nature to me means like spirals, fractals, branching patterns, that sort of thing. And what I'm mostly interested in is actually the structure of snow crystals, so six-fold symmetry. But as you can see in the work, it doesn't, it's not perfect, and it doesn't fully translate to exactly what a snow crystal looks like. It's kind of just my jumping off point. So you could go to the next slide. And this is just a detail of that drawing, just so you can see how there's just a lot to them. I make all these drawings with pen and ink, so just like a dip pen and acrylic ink. And I put words sometimes in them, which is kind of a new thing. And that one says, I don't know if you can see it, but it says walk around. I think it has actually some other words scattered in it. And that seemed to come out of like this practice of drawing in my sketchbook quite a lot during the pandemic. You can do the next slide. This one's titled Yellow Apple. And drawing in my sketchbook came out of this. I was reading Thoreau's abridged diaries, because actually his full diaries are super extensive. And I was reading this, I think it was New York Review of Books, abridged version of his diaries during the pandemic. And I was so interested in how he would record nature daily and have enthusiasm for it, but also it would shape his own emotional landscape. And so I was kind of like thinking like, well, how, like I want to do that. I want that to be in my work somehow. And so I kind of started drawing in my sketchbook a lot, not to be like, oh, I'm going to make perfect thumbnails and figure out, the perfect drawing I need to make. I'm just going to draw stuff to see what's there and what happens and what's my emotional state to items in nature, or sometimes different patterns that I see. You could do the next slide. And this drawing is called Western Hound's Tongue. So the flower is a native flower to the Bay Area, and it pops up in spring. And I was just really enthralled by this flower. I keep seeing it every spring. It's not very long-lived. But I think in my work I'm trying to have my patterns, have my snow crystal shapes, but also, evoke a sense of place within it. And I'm very interested in how water, shapes landscapes, and the different forms of it and shapes of it also can shape the evolution of flowers and plants and insects, and also what lives in, watered places versus less watered places, deserts, mountains. And just kind of how snow melt and snowpack can also really vary, and we're kind of in a time where that's really varied and can cause, different things that can happen. Like you have too much rain, then you have too much overgrowth, and then wildfires are more prevalent. So that's basically what I'm thinking about, but in a very kind of abstract visual language way. Next slide. So this one's titled February. I think it's like 50 by 40 inches. And it is a cutout. I call it a cutout and collage drawing, or a cutout drawing. But basically, I will make a drawing, and since I'm looking at things so closely, you kind of get lost as you make the work. And so sometimes the composition doesn't totally work out. And so what I will do is be like, well, instead of like being like, well, that's not as visually interesting. I will kind of cut out the stuff that works, most of it, and then add to it to make it into more compositionally will work, make more of a flow to it. And it really lends itself to also thinking about patterns in nature and organic growth and growing. But it's fun to think about it in these complex ways where you kind of look at the work and don't know like what happened first, what happened last. And I try to also make them very seamless, so you can't totally tell how they're put together. Next slide. So this is kind of a detail of a side of the drawing, so you can see the branches cut out. I think that one says, "Oh, okay, you see me?" I think it does. At the bottom it might say, the words are kind of scattered throughout. I think they're usually just, it's kind of a notebooky feel, like a doodling kind of way of drawing and thinking, and I think words always tend to come into that because it's kind of like in my mindset with my drawings, it's more like you're doodling on your notebook paper during math class type of feeling. And which I don't know, I feel like drawing is so magical that way. You can make hyper-realistic drawings of something, anything really, and with charcoal, or you can make pencil drawings, or you can use it in a variety of ways, and you can also just kind of, be doodling as well. So next slide. I think this one is titled Wow, Whoa, which it does say somewhere in the drawing. I usually don't title the drawings after the words I put in them, but I think this one was such a weird drawing for me that I just titled it after the words I put in it. But this is also a cutout and collage drawing, and it also has a little teardrop-shaped friend to the right of it. And they're not connected anyway, they just exist as one together. Yeah. So I feel like I'm running out of stuff to say. Next slide. And I was reading this great, so you can see kind of the seams a little bit and the cutting out, how that's just totally separated. And this one's titled Blackberry, How Does It Feel? And I was in my parents' place, and they live in Yoncalla, Oregon, very rural part. And they have all these wonderful blackberry bushes. And I started realizing in my work that I actually think about my parents' place quite a lot and the plants there. And I usually go in the spring, and I go kind of at the summer or the end of summer. And it's just so fun to see kind of all these plants in their various states of blooming and then not blooming, and it's like the end and they're kind of falling off, and the bears come and eat everything, or all the birds eating the fruit. And so this work is kind of based on the gigantic blackberry bushes they have around their pond, but also thinking about it as them breaking apart and kind of having a little entropy occurring. And I think in my work that there's a part of me that knows I can draw things very realistically if I want to, but there's kind of a certain point in my life where I was like, I don't know if that really sets up the relationship between myself and nature, and that seems to be, I want to know the emotional state. Just going back to Thoreau, what his idea of what is my emotional landscape? What is my relationship? And so I think drawing in this way really helps me to get to that point, so I'm very excited about that. Yeah, this is another detail. It says forever twice in there. I think it has more words in it. I guess I was reading a quote from Georgia O'Keeffe, because I'm in the Georgia O'Keeffe room, and there's these wonderful books of her work, and she was writing about how people never really look at a flower or spend enough time with a flower. And she was saying to spend time to look at something is like making a friend. And I feel like that relates to my work as well. Yes.
I have been dying to tell you. So it's more of a comment, but then I have a question with it. So with your work, the prominent blues with the whites
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of like traditional Swedish folk art.
Oh.
And it's just the color combination with that really pigmented blue in some of it, and then the lighter blues and the white. Do you notice like a draw to the color blue more so, or is it just does it just kind of happen naturally?
Yeah, my relationship with blue is I don't understand it either, to be really honest. I love it, and I think in 2020, I was dealing with a lot of, I was kind of at the aftermath of dealing with a lot of chronic illnesses, actually. And I think that the color blue was somehow, I mean, like anybody would say, it reflected my emotional state. But it was also very soothing, and I loved kind of like if you look at more modern photography of snow crystals, there's just so much rich blue in the photographs as well. So it was just like, it was kind of a great combination of like, I'm feeling blue, and also these things are blue, and water can be, a variety of different blues. So I don't know if that answers your question, but basically, okay. Bro?
Nobody else has a question? Because I can always talk to her later. But I love your work. The first time I saw it, I was intrigued by it. It's so different from me because it would drive me insane, the amount of detail on it. And we were talking about this that I thought you could share with them too. It's so cool that there's no mistake, because if like kind of with my paintings, if you spill something, which is likely could happen because you're working with ink and everything else, you can turn that into something. You kind of shared a little bit of that with me.
Yeah.
When we were at the house. I just found that interesting.
Right. So I think what he's talking about. So there are tons of mistakes in my drawings. They're, mostly pretty small. But sometimes I have decided to be like, I was like, oh, I don't really want to cut out this drawing. Like, it works. Like, I like it. And then I've accidentally spilled like, an entire bottle of ink all over it or something. And then I'm like, oh, but if I cut it out in this interesting way. So I kind of really love that the ink does smudge and smear, and that I can incorporate it all, because kind of running away from mistakes constantly just kind of is not very fun, and it's not very, I don't know, creative, and it's not how life is at all. It's just tons of mistakes constantly. So thanks for bringing that up, bro. Yeah.
I have a two-part question. So first off, how long does a piece like that cumulatively take you?
So this piece was, it's really, I think it's the biggest piece I've ever made. So it's like 60 inches by 50 inches. That took me like 6 months, but a lot of it was me kind of not knowing what the heck to do. I had kind of made a drawing and made some pieces that I thought would go with it. It really wasn't working out. It was kind of more experimental, and then I had to think about for a while how it all go together. But like, say a 22 by 30 inch drawing, that might take me 3 weeks to a month. But at Jentel, I've had so much focus time that I've been actually able to do a lot of work. So thank you, Jentel, for that. But yeah, it is definitely time intensive, very meditative process.
So yeah, I was curious, because your art definitely strikes me in a different way. My question would be, what would be your hope for because it feels like some of the things you say, it's very cathartic, like the process.
Mm-hmm.
For you, like you said, you said about healing.
Right.
What would be your hope for a piece like this?
What would be my hope?
Your hope.
My hope for a piece like this? I think for this piece and all of my work, it's kind of, I think it is in some way very healing for people to look at, because there's so much to lose yourself in, basically, and kind of, I I think that looking at nature is really important to health and mental health. And I think that my drawings are trying to convey that by having kind of, you have a interest because it has an overarching like visual thing you can follow, but as you get closer to it, you get to kind of fall into the work by looking at all the details and finding all of the things inside of it. So I think the generosity of my drawings is definitely to help people as well.